Welcome back to the Employee to Boss podcast. My name is Haley Hayhurst, and I am your host. I am the owner of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast agency specializing in editing, marketing, and strategy. I'm a visibility coach, and I help entrepreneurs and business owners increase their profits by getting more visible through podcasting and marketing strategies that work. So today is February 22nd, 2022, and I felt like I had to jump on here and do a solo episode because what a lucky day this is. I decided that to go with the 222 theme, I would share 2 of my favorite marketing tips for podcasting, 2 general podcast tips, and then 2 tips on how to grow your podcast. These 3 topics are what I get questions about all the time in my Instagram DMs, on Facebook, through my website. This is what people want to know about. They want to know how to market their podcast, how to sustain their podcast, and how to grow their podcast. To preface this, if you have any questions about anything I'm talking about today, my DMs are open on Instagram and my Facebook DMs. Through my group, Espresso Growth, send me a message and I will help you out. This is what I love doing. I love helping podcasters grow their podcast to become successful, so I am here to help you. Okay, so let's get into my top 2 marketing tips for promoting your podcast. Throughout this whole topic, I'm mainly going to be covering Instagram and a little bit of Facebook, and that's because Instagram is my favorite way to promote my podcast for myself and my clients. I will say that different platforms, social media platforms, can be better to promote different types of podcasts. For instance, if you have a political or a news podcast or a sports podcast, Twitter may be the best for you because it's very fast-paced. If a good rule of thumb is if you can pre-record your episodes, like I can pre-record my interviews months out. That's a good indicator that Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn are going to be the best ones for me. I definitely could be using Twitter, but it's not where my audience is. So before we get into this episode, I want you to think about where your audience is actually at. I can do another episode on this, but it's super important when you're thinking about growing your podcast and getting more listeners. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about the top 2 marketing tips that I want to share with you in this episode. Number 1 is have a plan for social media based on your goals. What I see a lot of podcasters doing is just posting as they have time, as they have an idea, as they have a new episode out. But what I really want you to do is have a solid plan about what goals you have for your podcast. Do you want to have amazing sponsors on your show? Then you need to align yourself with those sponsors now. Do you want to hit 10,000 followers on Instagram? You need to have a strategy to back up these things. The very first thing that I work with my clients one-on-one in my 6-month coaching program is we sit down for a whole hour, sometimes more than an hour, literally just talking about the goals that they have for their podcast. I want them to lay everything out on the table, no matter how ambitious it sounds, no matter how crazy it sounds. I want to hear what they want from their podcast. If I don't know these things, I can't build out the strategy in a way that will help them reach those things. I always say that little steps will lead to big results, and that is so true, especially when it comes to marketing and a marketing strategy. The things that you're posting today can help you 10 years down the line. I just hit 1,000 followers on my Instagram, and now I'm starting to bring in clients just from what I'm posting on Instagram because I've narrowed down what I want to post, what my goals are, what my offers are. I know exactly what I want. For one of my clients, she has an outdoor podcast, so it's called The Outdoor Entrepreneur. And she wants to get some amazing sponsors on her show that sell outdoor products or brands like REI. Those type of businesses are who she's targeting now. And so we want to build up the followers who are interested in the outdoors. And once she gets those sponsors, she will be able to sell to them, because the sponsors want to make money when they give you money. So you need to make sure that you have the right audience. We're also starting to connect with brands like REI and other brands like smaller companies that create vans that people can live in, road trip vans. Those types of businesses is who she wants to connect with. So we're starting to connect with them now, and in 2, 3, 6 months, she will have a relationship with them in some sort of sense. So when we send out the pitch for them to be a sponsor, it's not like it's coming out of nowhere. It's not like they haven't seen her name before. So that is tip number 1. Have a plan that aligns with your goals. Tip number 2 for marketing is solidify your brand kit. This is the fonts that you're using. This is the colors that you're using. These are the templates that you're using, the words, your phrases, all of those types of things. You want to build your personality into your brand kit, but overall, someone should be able to recognize you from your post, even if your face is not in it. If you look at my Instagram, Espresso Podcast Production, I'll link it in the show notes, you will be able to tell I have a theme. I have 4 different colors that I use, 3 different fonts. I have a specific tone of photos that I use, a specific vibe of photos that I use, and I also have a solid message throughout my Instagram. If you look at my clients, like his Instagram is called Meet Joseph James. He's the host of the Purpose Through Pain podcast. We have his brand kit very built out. And of course, we want to add photos of ourselves into our Instagram. But overall, we definitely want to have a solid brand and a solid message. And everything should look cohesive. Like I said, people should recognize you based on your brand. So think about what vibe you want to give off. Think about who your audience is. Think about what they are interested in and the tone of your podcast. So if it's more conversational and casual, don't make it all black and white and royal looking. Make it look fun and conversational. If you have a business podcast, make it look like a business. There's a lot of factors that go into it, but it really just starts off with thinking what you want to be perceived as. So those are my 2 marketing tips. Now let's get into my 2 favorite general podcast tips. Podcasting, I want everyone to feel like it is sustainable. I want everyone to feel like it is approachable, like you don't have to work super hard for it. It just comes naturally to you. And that all starts with the strategy, but also making it easier on yourself. So my number 1 tip is if you can pre-record. When I work with my clients for editing, because I do editing for tons of podcasts, I require them to be 2 weeks in advance. It differs a little bit if they have more of a timely podcast, but the core of the work I need to be able to do 2 weeks in advance. That way, if they go out of town, or if I go out of town, or if something happens, if there's an emergency, we have 2 weeks of content lined up and neither of us have to stress out. So if you can do some interviews in advance, plan out your guests in advance, plan out your marketing in advance, create your graphics in advance, do it. Be in advance. That is my number 1 tip for maintaining a podcast. My second podcast tip is use an online scheduler if you're working with guests. I personally use Calendly, and it makes it so easy to schedule my podcast guests, and it gives them automatic reminders. There is nothing more frustrating than a guest not showing up on time or forgetting that they even are scheduled with you. So if you use an online scheduler, it's a lot easier for them to get that reminder, keep them accountable, keep you accountable. I like paper planners for myself, but I would never schedule someone just through the DMs. I always have to have it on some sort of online calendar that I can share with them. So I will put the link to Calendly down below, but that one is the easiest for me to use and what I would recommend for you. It also gives you a great opportunity to add questions. They can put their bio in there. They can put photos in there. They can put all of their social links in there, and that makes it a lot easier for you to keep everything together. If you listen to my 3rd episode with Gordon Firemark, the podcast lawyer, he has a podcast guest release template that you can have your podcast guest sign, and it legally protects both of you. And if you use an online calendar, you can build this into that before they even book. Now to the last 2 tips that I have for you, and these are about growth. For me, podcast growth is the most amazing thing. When I see my download numbers go up, when I see my follower count go up, when I see more messages in my DMs, when I see more people join my Facebook group, when I see more people connect with my clients, these are all things that make me so happy. I am very reward-based. And so when I see those real results come through, that's where I feel inspired to keep going. So for growth, I challenge you to do these 2 things. And again, this is for marketing of your podcast on Instagram. The first tip I have for you, and the first challenge I have for you, is to connect with your ideal audience. When we're starting our podcast, we obviously want people to come to us. We want people to be inspired to come to us. We want our DMs flooding. We want those followers coming in. But you need to put in the work, because when you're in that growth phase, people might not know who you are. People maybe don't see your podcast showing up. So you need to make it show up for them and show up for yourself. The number one thing that I want you to do is start messaging your ideal listeners every single day. Pick 5 a day. You could do this 4 times a week or 5 times a week, and you will message 20 to 25 people a week. You will find them through hashtags or through other people's accounts, and you will just send them a message, something along the lines of, "Hey, I just came across your profile and would love to connect with you. I loved this, this, and this about you." Be very authentic here and genuinely want to connect with them. I get these messages all the time that are just copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. Those do not sit well with me. And so genuinely send them messages. And that's why I'm saying no more than 5 a day. This will get you burnt out if you do tons. So just do 5 a day, and that's 25 people a week that you will genuinely connect with. This comes down to really knowing who your audience is, and like we were talking about in the beginning of this episode, where your audience is. You need to know what accounts they follow, what hashtags they use, who they connect with, what they care about, why you want to connect with them, why they want to connect with you and listen to your podcast. Tons of questions that you need to answer here. I would recommend sitting down with a journal and a glass of wine and just writing. This is what I do all the time. Whenever I want more clarity in my life or my business, this is my routine. Just a glass of wine and a journal and some prompts that I want to discover about my business or myself. Try it out before you judge it, because it has helped me find so much clarity in my business. So that's the first thing. Pick 5 people 4 times a week and just message them a genuine message to connect. The last tip that I have for you is right before you post and right after you post, connect with some hashtags. So I can go into a full training on this. I'll probably be hosting another podcast marketing in a day webinar that I will bring up on here when it's available. But you will engage with 2 hashtags 15 minutes a day. Just 15 minutes. This has to go along with your podcast and your episode and whatever post you make. For me, the 2 podcasts that I love engaging with are Podcasters of Instagram and women who podcast. Those are 2 hashtags that I really, really engage with because those are where my ideal clients are. And it also gives me so many new ideas for marketing and ideas like that other people are doing, seeing what other people are up to. I find a lot of joy in it. So just pick 2 hashtags each day for 15 minutes and engage with them. Follow some people who are using the hashtags. Comment on their post. If they have a new episode out or a new podcast out, don't be afraid to leave them a comment and just say like, congratulations, this is awesome. I can't wait to connect with you. You can send them a message, or you could just like their post. Whatever it may be, do it. This helps the algorithm, and this will help you get more visible and show up more. These have been some of my favorite marketing, podcast, and growth tips that I can share with you on this lucky day 222. So I hope that this was really helpful. If you have any questions, like I said, send me a message on Instagram or Facebook, or join my free Facebook community. It's called Espresso Growth for podcasters, entrepreneurs, and industry leaders. We have about 500 members in there right now who have podcasts. A lot of them are looking for guests or to be a guest or just to connect with more people. So definitely join a good community of people who want to help each other grow. I want to hear what your thoughts are on these tips. Let me know if you try any of them. Send me a message on Instagram. It will literally make my day. So again, my Instagram is Espresso Podcast Production. I have loved doing this solo episode, and I am so excited for next week's episode with another incredible guest. So be sure to tune back in, and I will talk to you all soon. Thank you for listening to the Employee to Boss podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I hope that you implement the actionable steps from this week's experts so you can get started with your business today. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the Employee to Boss podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It helps more than you could ever imagine. Remember, a little progress each day leads to big results. We come out with a new episode every Tuesday. To access our show notes, transcripts, and courses, please check out espressopodcastproduction.com.